What's going on, everybody? RJ Ochoa here from SB Nation's bloggingtheboys.com. Hope all is well wherever you are. We hope you're happy, safe, healthy, and that you were excited for Dallas Cowboys training camp to begin in about, not even 3 weeks. We're less than 3 weeks away from things kicking off in Oxnard, California. Going to be very exciting times. I'm going to be out there for a bit. If you're going to be out there, let me know. We know that NFL Films and HBO are going to be out there because the Dallas Cowboys are the subject of this season of Hard Knocks. Lots of stuff to look forward to, especially on the defensive side of the ball, where we hope to see a lot of improvements for the Cowboys, given the fact that, last season, the defense was a disaster. So if you haven't been paying attention, shame on you, but welcome. This is part of our training camp preview series here on the Blog and the Boys YouTube channel. A reminder to please subscribe. We put out lots of videos all the time to break down the thing that you and I love most, which is the Dallas Cowboys. And in our preview series, we've been breaking down position by position as we get closer and closer to training camp. And we did defensive ends, we've done quarterbacks, we've done wide receivers. Up next, up today, the secondary, something that, showed some promise for the Cowboys last season. Obviously, Trayvon Diggs, kind of the face of that. The Cowboys devoted a lot of resources to the secondary in terms of quantity this offseason. They signed a bunch of free agents. I know they didn't go after anybody that you would have liked. They still could technically go after a couple of people, although that does remain a little bit doubtful. The Cowboys did spend some draft picks in the secondary. They obviously did not walk away with either J.C. Horn or Patrick Surtain, but they still had a draft and an overall class that I think we should be really excited about. And they did walk away with some top players in the secondary that can really build upon, hopefully, a promising rookie year to become legitimate cornerstones for Dan Quinn's defense. Let's take a look at all of the cornerbacks on the roster at the moment. A reminder that these are always sorted alphabetically, so do not come at us in the comments, people. You can comment and say some things you like, some questions you have, but these are just alphabetically sorted. All right, we start with Anthony Brown. That was a loud clap. Deontay Burton. Maurice Kennedy, a reminder, he did opt out of the 2020 season. Trayvon Diggs, last year's rookie phenom. CJ Goodwin, who is a special teams ace. Kelvin Joseph, the team's second-round pick. Jordan Lewis, who the Cowboys were able to bring back in free agency this year. That is a very big deal. We'll be talking about that in just a moment. Reggie Robinson, the second, who the Cowboys drafted last year, did not exactly play a lot this past season. The Cowboys couldn't necessarily decide where he was going to play. Is he a corner? Is he a safety, etc.? Sometimes that can plague a player early on in their careers. No big deal. Byron Jones, whatever. And finally, Nashawn Wright, the team's third-round draft pick, one of their 3 third-round draft picks this year, who caught a lot of people by surprise on draft night, but has since endeared himself to the loyal fan base that is Cowboys Nation. Taking a look at the safeties on this roster, I mentioned the Cowboys did go out and get a number of people. Again, just in terms of quantity, we've got Tyler Coyle, DeMonte KZ. That's the big one. We're going to be talking about that in a little bit as well. Jaron Kearse, Israel Mukwamu, who was a corner, obviously at South Carolina, opposite of J.C. Horn, but the Cowboys established well early on, right after drafting him, that they would be playing him at safety. In case you didn't see, we did actually interview Israel the day after the Cowboys drafted him. Really great video. You can go back in our library and watch that. He's a great young man. We're all rooting for him. Stephen Parker, Darian Thompson, and somebody who a lot of people have a lot of hope in, have a lot of personal pride in, as a fighting Texas Aggie. Donovan Wilson. So finally, the Cowboys do list 2 players just as outright defensive backs. You could refer, obviously, to this entire position group as defensive backs, but Keeman Hall and Rashad Robinson. Lots of people get Rashard Robinson confused with Reggie Robinson. They are, in fact, different players. So collectively, I think the first thing to kind of establish when it comes to the secondary of the Cowboys is that there are a lot of new faces. There are not really a lot of faces gone, a lot of faces departed, but that's not to say that no players left the Cowboys after the 2020 season. In fact, you look at this and the state of things for the Cowboys, you could have maybe said just get rid of the whole secondary because it was so bad last year. The Cowboys allowed over 3,600 yards and 34 touchdowns via the pass last year. And you can kind of cherry pick some things. You can talk about garbage time, etc. We're just talking about an overall volume here, and that's not good. That's not good for any team. It's not good under any circumstances. Obviously, the Cowboys last year, after Dak Prescott got hurt in late October, were struggling each and every week. They were falling down. They were making things easy for their opponents. But, I mean, it's not act like, the Cowboys defense wasn't really bad before Dak Prescott got hurt. This is a group that really was flustered and frustrated and confused a lot of times because of the defensive scheme they were working under, with Mike Nolan bringing Dan Quinn in, somebody who obviously has had a lot of success when it comes to building NFL secondaries will no doubt, be a rising tide that does lift all boats. I know that's a cliche, but it's a cliche for a reason, and Dan Quinn is that good. Notable positive things from last season for the Cowboys in the secondary. We've mentioned Trayvon Diggs, the Cowboys' second-round draft pick last year out of Alabama. Played really well, had 3 interceptions, and that's kind of rare for any Cowboys corner, like any year, let alone for a rookie. Now, to be fair, all 3 of his interceptions came against the Philadelphia Eagles. Shout out to you, Trayvon Diggs. 2 of them against one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL in Carson Wentz, the other against one of the other worst quarterbacks in the NFL in Jalen Hurts. So I don't know that you want to necessarily hang your hat on that, but it was very promising. And Trayvon Diggs, he's really only been playing the corner position for just a couple of years now. Started as a wide receiver, as everybody knows, at Alabama, and really kind of transitioning, obviously extremely athletic. And so you have to imagine that a full training camp, not only just in general, full normal training camp, obviously, compounded with the fact that Trayvon Diggs is now kind of established as one of the premier players on this defense in general, and specifically in the secondary, and even more specifically at the cornerback position. I mean, this is the Trayvon Diggs show. He is the face of that position. Sometimes that change happens really fast in the NFL, so much so that even Donovan Wilson, now entering his 3rd season with the Cowboys, is kind of that face of the safety department, right? I mean, we're excited about Damontae Kazee. Like I said, we'll get there soon. But Donovan Wilson has just... I've expressed some caution about this before in some of our other videos, and I say this again as a very loud and proud fighting Texas Aggie, but we've been down this road, right? We've been down this road of 6th-round draft picks for the Cowboys at safety that we're kind of convincing ourselves are really good. And I'm not trying to say that Donovan Wilson isn't very good, but Xavier Woods was really good. And Xavier Woods, I do believe, he wore out his welcome a little bit with Cowboys fans last year, especially after the quote about effort. But Xavier Woods over-delivered on his draft day stock, being a 6th-round pick, and that was because the Cowboys traded up to get him. And so I think Donovan Wilson is already there. I think the fact that Donovan Wilson is already kind of established himself as a starter in this defense really speaks to the path that he's taken and how impressive it is. I just, let's just be careful here. That's really kind of all I'm saying, but I do think it's definitely possible under the tutelage of Donovan Wilson, of Dan Quinn, that Donovan can take a sizable step here in 2021. Now let's look forward into 2021 for the Cowboys and the secondary. Now they did lose Chidobe Awuzie. I talked about players, players that left the Cowboys over last season. Chido Awuzie was a 2nd-round pick, and if your 2nd-round picks aren't necessarily sticking around, things aren't really working for you. The Cowboys have had kind of an interesting past with 2nd-round picks. I mean, you go all the way back to 2010, Sean Lee, great pick. 2011, Bruce Carter, definitely a lot of promise that didn't exactly work out. 2012, they didn't have because of the Mo Claiborne trade. 2013, Gavin Escobar, we don't have to talk about that. 2014, DeMarcus Lawrence, the best defensive player on the team. 2015 was Randy Gregory, who we were all definitely excited about, and the prospect of him in 2021. Definitely hopeful that he will take advantage of every opportunity here. 2016, Jalen Smith, is what it is. 2017, it was Chidobe Awuzie, who is now on the Cincinnati Bengals. 2018, Connor Williams, who is entering a contract year with the team. 2019, Tristan Hill, who I'm a little bit higher on than most. We'll get to him when we talk about defensive tackles. But finally, last year, obviously, you've got Trayvon Diggs, and then this year, Kelvin Joseph. But point is, Cowboys have spent a number of 2nd-round draft picks in recent memory on the cornerback position, and Chidobe Awuzie now somewhere else. That is not ideal, but that is really the only kind of demerit, I think, entering 2021 for this defense. You look at the positives. The Cowboys did bring in some options at safety, and the notable one is Damontae Kazee. Somebody, I don't put a lot of stock in the fact that he has experience with Dan Quinn. I don't know that players, and I promise I'm getting to somewhere positive with this, but I don't know that players can necessarily rejoin old coaches or old coordinators from one place or one team to another and just automatically have success. Another example of that is, I don't know that I believe Curtis Samuel is going to be amazing in Washington just because he played for Ron Rivera in Carolina, that kind of thing. But I think Damontae Kazee will be really good for the Cowboys because I think he's just a good football player. And I think that he obviously didn't play that much last season, and obviously is somebody that has a proclivity for generating turnovers. And we'll get to Damontae in just a moment. But I do think it's also worth mentioning this youth movement. We talked about Cheeto's draft class in 2017. That did also feature Xavier Woods and Jordan Lewis, who the Cowboys did bring back this year in free agency. And so the Cowboys, they drafted this year Kelvin Joseph, Nashawn Wright, and Israel Mukwamu. I don't know that, all of them are going to see serious playtime here in 2021, but I think that you have enough kind of veteran pieces to kind of, manage and weave your way into a new future, a new beyond, so to speak, because you've got this influx of Kelvin and Nishan and Israel Mukuamu, but you do have these stable veterans to kind of get you through the here and now, the right now, that is. You have your Anthony Browns, you have your Jordan Lewises, you have your Donovan Wilsons, you have your DeMonte KZs. So you're kind of, those veterans aren't necessarily bridge players, but they're helpful. They're the middle of the Venn diagram. That's kind of the way I'm looking at this. And so that's a really promising thing when it comes to 2021. Youth has to come in at one point or another, and it seems like it is here. And it's not just here in terms of the rookies. It's also here in terms of Trayvon Diggs. We mentioned Trayvon Diggs had 3 interceptions last year, all against the Philadelphia Eagles, and somebody who is really great at intercepting the ball in seasons that he's healthy, obviously, and available is DeMonte KZ. Obviously, had an incredible year in 2018, 7 interceptions. That number sounds just unbelievable for the Dallas Cowboys when you think about defenders on their team. He obviously had 3 interceptions in 2019 and none last year, a bit of a lost season for DeMonte KZ. But I think you look at it, and we're talking about a team that has a pass rush. We talked about the defensive ends that will hopefully get home more, especially if Randy Gregory does take that next step that I know a lot of you believe he's capable of. And if that happens, it's kind of, the front helps the back and the back helps the front. It is all symbiotic. And so I do think that this is a defense filled with secondary players that are more aggressive. And I think that that's something that we never really saw take off in the Chris Richard era. We really thought that Legion of Boom mentality was going to come with him, that he was going to have, what was then a young Cheeto, a young Jordan Lewis, a young Xavier Woods really kind of poaching this ball out of thin air. And that just never really happened. This Cowboys secondary has not been one to generate a lot of turnovers in recent memory, but now they have some different ball players and some different playmakers that can really, kind of make a difference in that department. We talk so much. Mike McCarthy talks a lot about how important turnovers are, how they can flip a game, how you can turn yourself, into a situation where you're really struggling into giving yourself promising field position. Last year, the Cowboys went their first 4 games starting within, let me rephrase this. Last year, in the first, I believe, 4 games of the season, I know I tweeted about this and wrote about this at the time at blogontheboys.com. The Cowboys' beginning field position was across the 50-yard line twice after the interception that incidentally Chidobe Awuzie had in the first week against the Los Angeles Rams, and after the infamous watermelon kick against the Atlanta Falcons, which was against now defensive coordinator Dan Quinn. And so all that is really to kind of lead us to a point where we say, how many interceptions could we see? I mean, what's a real number? Because I think we're looking at maybe 3 to 5 for Trayvon Diggs. That feels doable. I think, if you told me Trayvon Diggs, if I could guarantee that right now, he walks away with 5 interceptions in 2021, I know what you're thinking. That's low. I want more. I would take that. I would take that in a heartbeat. If you told me DeMonte KZ had 3 of his own, I would take that in a heartbeat. If you told me that Anthony Brown had 2 on his own, I would take that in a heartbeat. If you told me, and we're just talking interceptions here, not forced fumbles. If you told me Jordan Lewis had 1, I would take that in a heartbeat. If you told me Donovan Wilson had a couple more, I would take that in a heartbeat. So let's set the over under, what did we say? 5 for Trayvon Diggs. We said about, let's say 4 for DeMonte KZ. So now we're at 9. Let's say 2 for Anthony Brown. Now we're at 11. Let's say 1 for Jordan Lewis. Let's say 12. And let's just say another 2 for Donovan Wilson. Gives us 14. I'll set the over under. Let's go with 12.5. I'll set the over-under at 12.5, and I'll let you tell me because I can hear you. Trust me, wherever you're watching, I can hear you. Believe me. So over-under 12.5 interceptions for the Cowboys secondary group this year. Not their linebacking core, not their front line. That's obviously doesn't include Jabril Cox because he's going to have a couple of his own. If I set the over-under for 12.5, that is a bit ambitious. I realize this. But we are trying to be a little bit, optimistic. We're trying to be positive. We're trying to encourage this group here as we get closer to training camp and closer to them really putting together this overall picture that we're excited about. I mean, 12.5, I'll take the over. I'm just in that kind of mood today. All right, I'll take the over because I do think that Trayvon Diggs is going to be so much better, and he was really good last year. I think that Donovan Wilson's going to be better. That's, again, I know I'm kind of hedging my bet there, but I think that he will take some step forward. I think DeMonte KZ might be the biggest X factor. You can make a case. You can make an argument, I think, that DeMonte KZ is the most underrated free agent signing that the Cowboys had this entire offseason. Now, some people technically qualify Dak Prescott as a free agent signing. That doesn't really count for the purposes of this discussion. If we're talking about outside additions, interceptions to the Cowboys team, players that were not on the team last year, I think there is a very strong argument that the biggest difference maker is going to be Damontae Kazee, especially if he does walk away with somewhere around 4 interceptions for the team. That's something that can go a very long way. So 12.5, I'll take the over. I could see it being like exactly a lucky 13, a baker's dozen. And I think that we would take that, because if you're talking about, I think you ideally want to cross your fingers and hope for a turnover a game, right? So let's kind of live that out. Let's play this out a little bit. There's going to be fumbles too, and like I said, there's going to be interceptions that come from other players, other portions of the defense. And so if you're talking, let's say, even if they hit the under, even if they had 11 interceptions, right? That's still a respectable campaign, because you're probably going to pick up, 5 to 8 fumbles on the year. You're going to have a couple of interceptions from your front parts of your defense. I mean, I think it's conceivable that this team could have 20 to 25 overall turnovers, and the more interceptions that the secondary is able to pile up, the better it is. And again, we really believe, we all do, in the power of this team's offense. And so if this team is able to generate turnovers, if they're able to generate interceptions specifically, they can flip a field, they can give their offense all the more chances. And when you look at kind of the rhymes and the rhythms and the flows of an NFL game, and the way an offense is worked, and the way coordinators call their offenses, this is just kind of an age-old principle. But we all want to see the Cowboys offense be aggressive. And what helps if you're aggressive, or what helps being aggressive, rather, having success, right? Because the more successful you are, the more likely you are to do those things again, because they worked for you previously. But another thing that helps is if your offense is really good, it allows you to be riskier. It allows you to be aggressive, because okay, well, we might not score this time, but we'll score again. That's how we're going to be risky. We trust ourselves to score more often than not. And that allows you to, if you generate a short field, or if you turn what is a long field into a short field for yourself by way of a turnover, that allows you to be all the more aggressive, because you know that you can do that. You know you can produce turnovers. And if this Cowboys defense, that's been an element that's been missing from this team in an overall sense for a very long time, is a proclivity to generate turnovers. A lot of people think back to the 2014 Cowboys team, which is really crazy to think that it's been 7 years since then already. It's crazy to think that the same amount of time has passed from the 2014 team to now as the 2017 to the 2014 team. That's very weird in my brain. But the 2014 team obviously had a great offense, and under Tony Romo and Des Bryant, DeMarco Murray, we know all of that. But their defense was so fortuitous when it came to turnovers, and that's what really helped them. That's what put them in positive situations. And so if this team can generate a lot more interceptions in 2021, well, hey, that's going to work. But so things to kind of look forward to, I think, in the starting department here, because this will change. And these are kind of our guest starters outside of training camp. I think at corner, you're looking at Trayvon Diggs, Anthony Brown, Jordan Lewis. We know that this team's going to play a nickel a lot, so get used to seeing a lot of corners on the field. That's just how the NFL works. Nickel is kind of the new base. You hear all sorts of terminology, all sorts of verbiage, base defense, whatever. Nickel is basically the Cowboys' base defense, and a lot of teams in the league. At safety, I think you're talking about Donovan Wilson and Damontae Kazee. And I think that, do I feel really great about this? Should you feel really great about this? I mean, I think if I ranked, if I graded this group, on a 1 to 10 scale, I think I'm at a soft 7, and I think on some days it's an 8, some days it's flirting with a 9. I mean, this is better, right? This is definitely better than what it was last year. And a lot of that is the improvement of Trayvon Diggs and the addition of Damontae Kazee and, some players moving on. We don't have to dwell on the past, but I think altogether, collectively, the Cowboys have taken a step in the positive direction here. And with more improved play across the rest of the defense, I mean, improving everything, however marginally, even if you do believe it's marginal, really helps your overall group and your overall cause. And so that's a very good thing. But it's going to be exciting. It's going to be really exciting to see this secondary and this defense as a whole, because I don't know how to say this other than to say it, but they were so bad last year that like anything is good, right? Like the bar, our expectations are so low. So this secondary, and that's exciting. I know that sounds like shade or something like that, but this team can compete when their secondary and their defense are so bad. So the exciting thing is to consider, okay, well, what if they're just average, right? Like, what if they're just kind of normal? What does that do for the rest of the team? And that really elevates the overall product, which is the truly exciting thing as we get ready for training camp, for Oxnard, for Hard Knocks, for all the rest. Like I said, we've got some great stuff coming, so make sure, please do subscribe here to the Blog on the Boys YouTube channel while you're at it. Please subscribe to the Blog on the Boys podcast network. We have a new episode, a new show that comes out every single day, because we news that is constantly happening in the world of America's team. You can also make sure to check out bloggingtheboys.com for the latest and greatest in the world of Dallas Cowboys news. My name is RJ Ochoa. You can follow me on Twitter or Instagram at RJ Ochoa. This is the last month. This is the last month without football until March, right? Because August, preseason. September, time to dance. October, November, December, Cowboys went undefeated. January, playoffs. February, Super Bowl, parade, party. We rock. All right. Good times are on the way. Good times are coming. Very excited to see what the coming months have in store for us. Remember, this is just the latest installment of our training camp preview series. We will continue to break down all of the position groups on the Cowboys as we get closer and closer and closer to the left coast, the west coast, the Oxnard sun, the beach, the ocean, the breeze. All of it's going to be some great time. So we appreciate all of you who joined us. We hope you have a great weekend. We hope you have a great day whenever you're watching us. Thank you so much, everybody. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.